Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill Namen's Bogus Hangout. And have our guests introduce themselves. Zara?
Hi, I'm Zara Altair, and I do semantic writing.
Terry?
Terry Van Horn, SEO Pros, and I have a show here with Bill. Hopefully we'll do one shortly,
Yay.
couple of weeks.
And I'm Bill Slosky of SEO by the Sea and Director of SEO Research for Go Fish Digital.
I just want to add that Bill and Terry's show is called Entity Hour.
Thank you, Zara.
Yes.
No.
Terry's.
Oh,
Go ahead, Terry.
oh no, I'm wondering where we're gonna start here.
So, Terry,
Oh,
tell
okay.
me about YouTube videos.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what I was going to say. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Well, I found a post that basically said that Google is taking some featured snippets from out of videos, and sometimes they will include the video as part of it as well. So when you see a featured snippet in the SERP, then that good chance that's how it happened, as a featured snippet rather in the answers.
Okay, so Google's finding answers to questions people might have and including rich content with those answers. And in some
Yes.
cases, that's video.
Yes, and they're actually taking the snippets out of the video by using, when you, some people on their video, they'll put like a timestamp and say this is this and all that stuff. Well,
Yeah.
they're actually using those to find the snippets in the recordings.
So the timestamps are sort of key to that.
They're a piece of it. And I will include with the post in
Yeah.
the links, there's a link that talks about the timestamps and how that works. It's a good tip. It was enough that I looked at it and thought, okay, there's probably some things that we can do with that.
That was from an article by Brody Clark.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting, and I know that I just started timestamping my videos, and it's only been a couple of weeks, so I don't have enough information to see if it makes a difference. But
I've got a ton of timestamp videos that I was about to shudder that I'm having a second thoughts now, because all of the bogus hangouts that I was putting on the Dojo Radio,
Yeah.
I was actually doing minutes to distinguish what was SEO and what was kind of us just talking about whatever. So pulling out the marketing bits.
oh well, that's nice.
But the thing is, I did it on the website. This you do in the description of the video. But I'm thinking if they pull it on YouTube, they may be pulling it off of websites as well. Or that would be something that they might do in the future, right, Bill? Would you agree with that statement?
It's quite possible that they would do that in the future. They seem to be doing more analysis of videos, of images, of other stuff, not necessarily from YouTube or from a Wikipedia. They're
From anywhere.
right.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that in the future, if the video description does not include a timestamp, but the video displays on a web page and with a description that also includes a timestamp, that they would pick that up.
No, because you don't get the description of the video when you embed a video. All you get is the
Yeah, I
video.
know, but that's what I was asking. So,
Yeah,
some people.
that's
All right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because some people, like one,
But if they did that, one of the techniques you could do is embed a video and put those timestamps on it. Get featured snippets on someone else's video. Just saying. I would never do anything like that.
That would be tough. Time stamping is arduous, at least for me.
But I think it's also good for the users. That's why I did it, for sure.
That's why I started doing it. Yep.
And the other thing that was interesting in the video is Brody, it seems, does quite a bit with video, and he says that the what do you call it? Where they take the words in the video and put it into text. I forget what that transcription. Sorry. But I'm getting old, folks. I have brain farts all the time.
What did he say about the transcription?
Well, he's saying that it's improved quite a bit, and that's why they're starting to use these featured snippets in them as their they feel their own transcripting is that much better. Well, he didn't say that. That's
it has improved a lot over the last. I'm sorry, it has improved a lot. I looked at it 4 or 5 years ago and just died laughing.
Yeah.
And I've used it a few times over the last year, and it's there are some occasional errors where they're transcribing, so you're using the word there in terms of possessive, and they make it a conjunction, but they're rare.
Now Google did.
So I've been impressed with it.
Yeah, it's really
Google did once upon a time have a way to edit the transcripts, and
they did away with it.
About 5 or 6 years ago, I watched about 300 or 400 videos to try to find at least one that was transcribed well, and I found only one.
Wow!
It was a Barack Obama State of the Union address.
Wow.
Somebody had taken the time to go through it and edit it and clean up all the errors and all the problems. But most people hadn't taken the time to clean up errors and problems.
Yeah, I read that when Google does Google I/O, and they have people there actually editing the transcripts on the fucking fly, so that they look good. Because I guess for probably hearing impaired, for accessibility reasons as well.
When I worked for the courts, we put in real-time transcription service so that if we had deaf witnesses or defendants, the court reporter could type the stuff in the system, and the judge could watch on monitor, and the defense and prosecutor attorneys could watch on monitors to see what was being transcribed.
So they could make sure that what they wanted to be said was said.
Right.
Oh, cool.
That's
so that real-time transcription, and we had to make sure real-time transcription software was adequately installed on the court reporter's equipment, and the monitors were set up in the courtrooms so they could read that stuff.
Yeah, that kind of voice recognition and that kind of stuff is. I remember the first time I tried to use that. Oh, no, this takes longer to fix than it takes to just write it down the first time.
So stenographers charge a lot to get information correct because it's not the automatic real-time translation of voice to text. They need to input the right symbols in their equipment to get the transcription correct.
Right.
And Google's, I guess, spent the effort, the time to make those transcriptions much better. They're using neural networks, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Probably some of the information that they gained from their telephone network, all the stuff they've been doing with voice has probably really helped with that as well. As far as them, being able to train and better identify words and their meanings.
Well, they can understand the utterances in the audio much better. And they have a lot of audio on the web to work with, to experiment with, to use as test data.
Millions of minutes per minute being downloaded on or uploaded onto YouTube. I'm sure they have lots of stuff.
They have lots of test data to improve the quality of those results with. And then they can, or they have training data. And then they do the training and they test it with test data. And that's how they work to improve it.
Well, if they're using it for featured snippets, they must figure they've got it down pretty good.
Yeah.
Because that would be extracting stuff and probably adding it to the knowledge graph as well. Correct?
It's quite possible, yeah. I mean, they came out with a patent update last year where they said when you search for a quote, we're not going to grab the information from a knowledge base anymore. We've analyzed all kinds of videos. We're going to get that information of who maybe said something from our analysis of audio on the videos. And this way we can show you the source video.
Right. And in my opinion, there's lots of things like how to make an omelet. I'd rather watch a video of it than trying to do text and do that,
often when somebody's searching for a quote, they have an idea who said it. They just want to watch them say it.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
When somebody says, okay, I want to see that scene from Apocalypse Now.
Right.
The guy says, I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Right.
They want to watch that scene.
Or also, like, say, something that Trump said.
Yeah.
Right. And you want to see where he did, the stupid thing and stuff. You want to see it in context. It's funnier,
So what was that that cognitive test that he aced?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Which means he got a 1. And that was rounded up.
Now, I believe he got a 30 out of 30, but if the guy who interviewed them, Chris Wallace, said, I took the test. It wasn't that hard.
I love that interview.
That was a great interview, yeah.
But he's a pro. I miss some of the old guys, the Dan Rathers and the Cronkites and Huntley Brinkley. They would have had a field day, ate them alive, but there's not too many journalists these days that really have either the gumption or the network's authority and permission to go after him.
That was an amazing interview.
It was the interview you sort of expect from a journalist.
Exactly.
And a lot of times these days, journalists start asking the president questions and he starts calling them idiots.
Yeah.
And that they're biased and they just stop asking.
Right.
You're fake news.
You're fake news. Yeah, that's the standard answer.
Yes. Was that on 60 Minutes or on the morning?
That was on Fox News, believe it or
Fox
not.
News, believe it or not. Yep.
Oh, wow. So even they're on them now. The end is nigh.
God,
Dream on, Terry.
oh man.
Okay, so featured snippets that I may have to try to do some searches to see if any of those quotes from those videos show up in those featured snippets.
Yeah, some of the famous lines would be a good place to start, probably.
Some of the historical ones.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, when you sent that stuff over, your notes over, Terry, I went look. I tried to find some of those in my SERPs, and I couldn't. But my first thought was, because I was reading that first article you referenced,
Yeah.
that I was wondering. I wonder if any of those click throughs take you to the timestamp or just to the video. And then I saw the second reference that you made over on SEJ that showed that, yeah, they are. So interesting. You know, it definitely seen some improvements in the kind of stuff they're delivering in the SERPs over the last couple of years. That has to be AI driven. You know, it's just there's no way in the world that they're just doing that with their old traditional algos.
I mean, yeah, we have knowledge graph these days. We have structured data. How much? Another story that you ran into or you sent to us was involved structured data.
Mhm.
How much
For the reviews?
How much? No, how much does the difference? How much of a difference does structured data make in search results? I mean, do they help with rankings? That article said that Google spokespeople haven't said that structured data helps with rankings, but Gary Eels did say last year they make the search results more more precise. That wasn't necessarily the word he used, but more understandable.
Well, it's going to be that would have an indirect effect on rankings, at least.
No, it's like it adds context
Right.
To the SERP, yes.
to the SERP.
SERP. So
But here's a
it
my.
helps. Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the structured data helps the search engines. This is my understanding. Helps the search engines understand more easily, more quickly, and more thoroughly, and how it is related to information that is on a page, so that irrespective of ranking, if that particular page has the information that answers a particular query, that page will show up, which is back to what I was saying earlier about you don't need that page in your menu, because if it provides the answers for a specific search query, it's going to show up anyway. But I have no idea how that impacts ranking.
It doesn't. But if you think of rankings in the term of visibility, which is how you should be looking at your ranks, is how much visibility do you have in the space? It really increases visibility, which is kind of like increasing ranks as well. And, again, if you get your review, right, embedded in the SERP, you're going to get more clicks, and especially now that it's getting harder and harder to get that review into the SERP. When you do get it in, it pays. I look at featured snippets and all that stuff as opportunities. That's it. So,
Well, like you say, visibility is the key, and a smart, a rich snippet is just gilding your result. It's just you might as well have a flashing neon light on it.
You're right.
So if you're getting a five stars showing there next to your snippet, that draws the eye immediately.
right.
But structured data can also explain the context of
sure.
what the page is about. So you have a page about Jaguars, and somebody wants to know something about the football team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and your structured data has to do with the football team. When somebody does a search for what was the Jaguars' record last year? Record is an indication that it's a sporting team. And your page is about the sports team. Your page is going to rank higher for that query because it's the right context, the right meaning of that word.
And you might not even have the word football on the page. It knows that from the structured data. However, it helps to have the word on the page to verify.
If you have the word in structured data, you should have the word in the page too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that that's how you make it clear on the
Right.
page. This is what I'm talking about. And if it was hockey, you'd put in hockey and a link to the hockey team on Wikipedia to tell them this is who I'm talking about, and to the game hockey.
Right.
So makes sense.
So you're adding that context, you're adding that meaning to the page with the structured data you use.
Right.
And
telling them about that entity.
And that can impact rankings.
Yes.
So it's more than just a click through. It's more than just a rich result.
Oh,
right.
For sure.
I think the next piece of data people will try and figure out is if someone clicks through from a featured snippet where you use structured data, how does that work with conversion on the website? Like, does it help? Does it hinder?
Somebody ran a study last year about FAQ markup. And they determined that publishing FAQ answers for a page didn't result in more clicks through to the FAQ page. Until I think it was Lily Ray of Path published an article saying, okay, so we put links in our FAQ answers. And after we did that, we got a lot more clicks through to our pages.
Oh, because there would be link in the SERP to those pages.
Right.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a good idea.
I didn't realize that they would even pick up those links and display them.
Yeah, they did.
Wow, that's pretty
So
cool.
the links would have to be placed very well in context for that to happen.
Right. You'd have to be smart about how you set up your FAQ.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is brilliant.
So does structured data, does that markup increase clicks through? It depends on how you set it up.
Like so many things. It depends.
Depends. How good are you?
Absolutely. Uh-huh.
But you have to realize, like, I never thought that they would allow a link in a featured snippet. I'm surprised by that. So I learned something very valuable today.
When they came out with definition markup, one of the things they said in the patent that was about definitions was if you have a definition, there's a C colon and then a link, they'll ignore your list of definitions because they didn't want links and definitions. So it's a sort of careful balance, I think. You maybe don't necessarily want to answer an FAQ question with just a link.
Right.
But you might want to include the answer and then include a link also.
And especially if the link led to more information.
Yeah.
Right. More broader information on the same thing.
So in the answer, in the FAQ, when you create your answer, do
answer the question.
Right, you answer the question, but to include the link, you would use some word in that answer as an anchor text.
You could use in some cases you might want to do this and link to some other.
I see. Okay.
Or link to an entity's name if it was an entity and you had a page about that entity, link to that entity.
Right. So this answer is true in all states but Texas. If you're in Texas, you should maybe look at this.
And put a link to what you should look at on the thing in Texas. Yeah.
Right.
See, I think Google would reward a link like that. But if you just had a link that was a link, that wouldn't happen.
The answer is here. It's like, why are we going to use your answer if you're just going to provide a link?
Yeah, linking to your services page or your home page or your About Us page is probably not going to gain you much.
No, not much at all.
So make it of value.
Right.
Provide value with what you're doing.
Do you think authoritativeness probably has a lot to do with that as well? Whether they would put a link in?
I'm not sure that authoritativeness is something they're looking at when they're deciding whether or not to include your link in.
Be more about the context and what it linked to, what they thought of the paper that it linked to.
The first important thing there would be how well you answered the question.
Right.
I think for an FAQ page.
Right.
Is your answer well written, well formed, and concise? Does it answer the question well? If it does, then it's a good answer.
Yeah, if you write a page on it, you're probably not going to get it as a featured snippet.
No.
And if it's not something that is specific only to your company, it
entity
better be more valuable than anybody else's answer.
Entity is this, and this. Is concise, well written, possibly a very good answer. It's very direct, and you want that conciseness because Google is only going to show so much information as a featured snippet or a answer to an FAQ page in search results, right?
Right.
So you included another story for us about robots.txt.
Yeah. That one was kind of, straightforward. Like, I think most people know you don't have to block your hit access.
No.
Your provider generally doesn't want people opening that one up and having a gander.
You don't want to block your PHP INI?
Don't have to.
Don't need to.
John Mueller basically said, yeah, we don't bother with that stuff. Same with PHP.
Well, most servers are going to have the PHP any and config any. That's going to be blocked anyway.
Yeah. They don't care that you're using PHP modules. All that, they could care less. Believe me.
I did an audit early this year that something had suddenly tanked, and they had just had a dev do some customization. They added some stuff in, and he had blocked all CSS and Java scripts. And
yeah, that'll really help your crawling.
That was right about the time that thing doglegged down to 0.
Yep.
They had all sorts of notices popping up in their GSC.
How I figured it out was I got a message from Google that said, you have to unblock your WP admin so we can get at the JS and CSS. And I said, no, you can take the site away before I'm going to unblock WP admin. Not a chance. Then I figured out all you do is allow CSS, JSS, and anywhere they want it from your site, they can pull it.
Yeah.
And that's the fix.
Yeah,
but I look at the stuff that people are allowing to be indexed by Google. Sure. They're nuts. They don't realize that, where hackers find most of the sites they exploit? By looking for those files on a search engine, folks. That's why you block your...
Wasn't it you early this year that gave me a heads up on that? You can block it, just allow CSS and JS?
Might have been. That's something I often tell people. But I block comments. You know why I block comments?
UGC?
Because WordPress pulls the no follow out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So if and they don't always follow your excerpt. So mine always says no more than X, right? You go and there's a full copy of your excerpt in your feed because the theme guy didn't know how to write the program correctly.
Oh, that never happened.
That's why I just block it. Same with comments. How do people remotely comment on your site? Well, they hit your RSS. That's how, you idiot. Where do they find that? In a search engine. There's so many things. And I didn't know that right off the bat. But when I started working with WordPress, the first thing I did was go to WordPress, and they recommended that you block all this stuff.
Yeah.
So when the makers of the program say, we recommend you block this stuff, they ought to know.
Yeah, then if your life's not complicated enough, adios plugin.
But enough people don't really, pay it. They think all robot text for is no index and no indexing files. Well, not really, folks. That's the least of what it should be used for.
It's not what it was built for anyway.
Nope.
It was built because there were lots of people sending robots out from different sites, which would show up on the sites and crawl the sites mercilessly, using up all your resources.
Back in the day, that was an issue too.
Yeah.
But you can't really block, robots text doesn't block anybody. It only blocks those who want to be blocked.
Yeah, it keeps honest people honest. Eh?
Yeah, that's it. In any honest search engine, will always put at least a 15-second delay between gets. If you read about agents and how often you're supposed to request pages, etc., 15 seconds is recommended. That way you're not really pounding a site.
So you included a Search Engine Land article from one of my coworkers.
Oh, did I? Oh.
Yeah. He was curious as to whether or not the perimeter URL handling tool from Google was still working. So he got a log file analysis tool, blocked some stuff in the perimeter handling tool, and checked to see if Googlebot was crawling the pages that he blocked. And they were. So the perimeter handling tool wasn't working at all.
It would be interesting to see if that's true of ones that were done pre them kind of mothballing it.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to know. But that is a good tool that they shouldn't have mothballed.
Yeah, that was a shame to hear that.
Well, you know why? Good SEOs could make that thing work for them, man.
It's just questionable, if it has any value anymore because it doesn't look like they're listening to it. They're using it as a hint rather than a directive.
Yeah. So that means you have to take it from the parameter tool and put it in robots text.
Because you're using the parameter tool to tell it not to crawl those parameters. Yeah.
Right, but you could also do that by blocking in the hit access by blocking those files.
Right. You could use wildcards in the URLs.
Right. Or just say anything that ends with that or uses that parameter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's possible to do parameter handling without necessarily using the parameter handling tool.
Right. It's a little messier, though.
Yeah, it's not as easily done by the casual site owner.
I decided I was going to keep my webmaster tools clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah, webmaster tools was clean as a whistle. My hit access was like this long. Because I found categories that were never on my site listed on Google as 404s. And that's something I want to find out for myself is, okay, those pages, as far as I know, never existed because they were category pages, right? Yeah. So there would have been a history of them in WordPress, right? That I had destroyed them or done something with them. Couldn't find anything of it, but there's 3. You know what I think it is? Someone put the wrong category in a link to the site, and they now call it a broken link on my site.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, did you ever figure it out? Yeah, that sounds like a real possibility.
And that's what why I think they should remove that stuff after a while, because that wasn't my link. It's not on my site.
And Terry, I think your notion there has some real merit, because I saw a client not too long ago who had gone and registered his site on some of these business listings. And he didn't like they make you select a category and a subcategory for your business, and there wasn't anything that really suited him perfectly. So he went for the closest thing he could find, and it was a category that, like you said, had never been one of his categories on his site, and it was showing up as a 404. And I never thought about that, but I'm just now making that connection. That was something that we went in and had him clean up, was getting him off of all those directories. And because he bitched about his good, because maintaining these things is a pain in the butt because they never have the right category for my business. And I bet I'm going to go back and see if I still have him in my files, because I'll bet that those 404s were categories that did show up on some of those directories, and that's what he had chosen.
Yeah, anybody can link to anything. Me and Dave, just before Panda came out, Dave and I got a forensic client, and it turned out that they were using SQL and ASP, and you could call any page on the website and it'd create the template with no content in it. And someone was throwing thousands of URLs at their site, just ruining the crawl data, man. Like, when I looked at it, I said to Dave, well, I know what they're doing here. Someone has realized that any page you ask for on this site, it will attempt to make a page out of it. And some ASP programmers never picked up that that system does that framework.
Wow.
If you look in Google Search Console, you'll see URLs like that showing up in the configuration section as ones that Google's refusing to crawl and index.
They'll also tell you it's a coverage issue, because that's how I found
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So if it's a link that you should actually be getting like PageRank for, you want to get the parameters in it cleaned up. I mean, if it's a link to a page that has a canonical link element, it should probably be using that canonical link element.
Oh, yeah.
Google may decide not to.
That would be another way to fix it, wouldn't it? Would be to create the page and put a canonical to the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because a lot of times that's how you have a page that's dynamic and there's stuff that the user puts in, but you don't want the search engines to get that. You want them to only get the part that you've written for them and have the user stuff come in after. And that's one way you could do it too.
You do want to
That's
make sure
another way.
it gets canonicalized to the proper page. Because if Google doesn't think it will, Google puts in another bucket that says user selected canonical is not the one that Google likes.
Like these sites that canonicalize to their homepage for everything?
Yeah. Google might put those in a slot that says, no, we don't like that canonical for this page.
Yeah, that's not very good.
Yeah.
Defeats the purpose.
If Google says we don't like that canonical, what happens?
They don't.
If you look at your Google Search Console in
Yeah.
the configuration section,
Yeah.
you'll see that they have the pages that aren't indexed, aren't valid. You click on those and you'll see a list of reasons why they're excluded from indexing.
Okay.
And they have different categories. You click on them and you can see all the URLs that are in that category.
Yeah, that report is actually improved with the new console for sure.
Right. It's something that if you're just starting out doing SEO, you should spend some time with.
You'll learn a lot.
Yeah. You say, why would Google not accept the canonical I chose for the page? Well, when I changed my site from HTTP to HTTPS, at first Google didn't like that I was canonicalizing HTTPS pages to HTTPS URLs. They wanted me to use HTTP URLs to canonical them. It took them a while to figure out I had migrated to HTTPS.
Did you go into your webmaster tools and tell it that that's the one you wanted as primary?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That usually should tell them this is what I want, HTTPS.
That's strange that they would have struggled to identify that immediately.
Yeah, really?
Well, I didn't make that change the same day that I changed.
Oh, I see.
It took me a day to figure out why
You probably
this isn't
had a
working
crawl
right.
in between there.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, yeah, I found you make a mistake, Google will find it for sure. They'll choose that, Dave, guaranteed.
You do. It's kind of like a wife. You do something good, they never notice it. But
Yeah.
boy, you
Make one mistake.
So what's the old joke? You screw one goat.
It took Google a couple weeks to figure out that was not set up the way it was supposed to be. That HTTPS was the right canonical.
Yeah, when my server first started sending a 303 response code, Google actually said the server was not configured properly. But that disappeared after a while because I'm looking at it and I looked up the code.
Yeah.
Right? 303, because I thought to myself, I never heard of this one. And then when I looked it up, it said, oh, it's a new one for 1.1, HTTP 1.1. And they don't have 302, they have 303.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I've only seen it on Azure, and I believe it's running on AWS too, I believe. Based on another website where I found the same thing, and I'm pretty sure they're running on Azure. Not Azure, but AWS.
So somebody linked to one of my pages on my site and misspelled one of the words in the link. And in Google Search Console, it was saying that that link was providing a 500 error. I need to fix that. So I in my control panel, I set up a redirect from the misspelling to the proper spelling. And in Search Console, a day later, it said, it gave me the chance to verify that I had corrected that error. So I clicked on verify it, and it took it 2 days to figure out that the error no longer existed. So Search Console doesn't always get things fixed right away.
No.
That goes into a queue. Just like I always hand submit my sitemap, so I know that it's valid and whatnot at the time. And it usually takes 1 or 2 days before they get to checking it.
Yeah.
But you got to imagine. Can you imagine how many sitemaps they get submitted a day?
Oh yeah, that's why they. Can you imagine having to crawl the web without sitemaps?
Oh wow! Well, I remember when they weren't used that much.
Yep.
I mean, you go to a site, as a search engine, you download the XML sitemap, which means you can move all those URLs right to a queue to be crawled.
Right, but in the early days, they didn't really do that. They
Right,
didn't use sitemap.
They came to a page, they made a list of all the URLs that are linked to
Come
on
back
the page,
later.
and they added those pages to a queue to crawl, and then they would crawl those, make another list of links and anchor text, and
Yeah, if you had a 200-page site, it could take a couple of weeks or more
right.
just to get your
Months.
pages even discovered.
Months. That's where the stuff came from. Like anybody who tells you it takes 6 months to get results from SEO, run, don't walk.
It used
That's
to.
the biggest myth. Yeah. In 1994, maybe.
Yeah.
But for the like, if you can't see something with the first month that your SEO has done something positive, run, don't walk.
Right. So I got a call yesterday from a guy who said, well, I had somebody working my website and it's been 2 days and I'm not seeing any ranking changes.
Well, that's a little silly.
And I told him, okay, that I can believe. It's going to take more than 2 days. We can spend time. We can go over your site. We can look at things. We can make sure everything's set up right. But 2 days just really isn't enough time for Google to even notice that
That's
some
pretty
changes
lofty
have been.
expectations there.
Yeah.
That's why it's nice to take some baselines when you take over a client,
Yeah.
and then you can show them, well, this is how many pages were indexed before I started, and this is how many you got now. So,
Well, and when you're working with a client and you make changes, you should give them some idea of how long it might take to see
Right.
the impact of those changes. So this way they don't say, okay, it's been 2 days, I need to talk to somebody else.
Well, I think that 6 month thing too is, besides being old information that some noob has heard and believes it's still gospel, I think a lot of times it's just some jackleg out there who's trying to use it as an excuse to get you
to
to sign
hold on to a
contract.
client. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can lock you into a 6 month or 12 month contract.
He's faked it till now he's made it. Now he's actually got to do something.
Now he's in trouble.
A lot of them are. Some of them do learn, though. They're the ones who succeed. The ones who don't learn don't succeed. Because it doesn't take long before you're out of business, I'm pretty sure. Because in a lot of ways, the best business is usually referral business in our business.
Absolutely.
You make sure you communicate with your client. You keep them apprised of everything that you do. And you, if they have any questions about something that you did, you explain why you did it. If you can, you point out stuff from like Google or wherever that helps show that you did something helpful.
That's why I like the monthly meeting, because each month I could say, this is what we did, this is what happened when we did it. And we've got some rankings that will increase because now we're going to build more links to that page. And they realize what we're doing. Because a lot of them, that's why they're unhappy. They don't think you're doing anything because they can't see it.
Yep.
If you don't have
That's
them,
why
if a client doesn't have them set up right away, make sure you've got Google Analytics and Google Search Console set up. If they do have them set up, make sure they have some idea of how to use them.
Yeah.
At least be able to go in and tell if traffic is increasing.
Yeah.
Right. Show them.
The approach I like to take is instead to tell them, okay, here's what I intend to do over the next 2, 4 weeks, whatever, and here's why. Because it takes a little bit more time, but it usually saves me a lot more time in the long run because I don't have to come back and explain it 3 times, or worse yet, if it's a larger situation where I'm dealing with a team of, the CTO and the CMO and the vice president of ops. I got to explain it to people who disagree with each other. Yeah, it's just easier just to say in writing, here's what I'm planning on doing, here's why.
And it's helpful to have a point person assigned from your client
It's
as a
helpful.
person
Good luck.
you talk to. It is really helpful to have that
Oh, yeah.
person because they can be the evangelist for your company. They're the people
But
you
what?
talk to.
But you know what usually happens when I, because I stress that I need a primary point of contact.
Yeah.
They agree on somebody, and then everybody still tries to backdoor that guy to me, and I get conflicting signals anyway.
Yeah, that happens.
One of the reasons that I really enjoy
That
working
happens
with
on the
small,
right side too. I just want to let you know that that also happens.
Front door man only.
yeah, give everybody else a phony phone number.
Yeah, it's part of the challenge of working with clients. Making sure you have systems set up that make it easier for them to work with you.
Yep.
Well, that's one of the reasons that the couple of large enterprise projects that I was on
Yeah.
made me realize that I didn't want to work on any more large enterprise projects. When you got these bi-weekly or weekly meetings with 12 people around the table, and it's obviously just a political backbiting exercise.
Mhm.
I'm not into 2-hour meetings with 12 people. I'm sorry. They're unproductive in real life, and they're even more unproductive in virtual.
I have one client who, will set up a project and I'll get going, and then all of a sudden she'll say, "Well, let's have a meeting with somebody I've never heard of before, who's tangentially related as a consultant or something or other, and we'll run through all these points." And I'm like, "Oh my God. And then we'll have a meeting, and this other person usually is pretty hip, but it is disconcerting because all of a sudden whatever agreements you've made with your original your original client, there's this stuff coming in from left field that that individual or those individuals, because it had it where meetings with 3 or 4 people who weren't aware, and it's confusing, and you have to backtrack and say, this is do all this, this is what I was doing and this is why stuff, which you've already discussed with your client. I find it frustrating.
We all do.
Time suck. I'm very fortunate. I've only been in maybe 2 meetings where there were giant ego clashes going on, and you're like, whoa, I don't want to be here. You guys duke it out. Let me know when you've made a decision.
Yeah, let me know when the duel is over.
Right. But I think I think, as you said, it's part of being in the consulting world is that stuff just happens.
And there are processes you can set up to reduce that.
Yeah.
It's like I remember the first agency I joined and was working with, we would have these kickoff meetings with clients. And we would ask them the same questions every meeting, except they were never written down. And sometimes questions got missed. So I walked out of one of those meetings. And I said it's not going to happen again. I started writing all the questions out, and I made copies of them, and I shared them with everybody, and said, okay, what isn't included? What needs to be added? And we developed a process.
And that way you don't have three different people remembering the answer to a question in different ways 6 months down the road, too.
Right.
Right, exactly. Under the writing things down and steps you're going to take or whatever it is that you're going to be doing is and then getting agreement. This is kind of my process. Is I write it all down, and, after we've had a meeting, and I say, okay, so this is my understanding of what we're doing next, or whatever it is,
Add structure to those.
Yeah,
projects.
and I say, is there anything I missed, or is do you agree this is how we want to proceed, something of that nature. So because, man, if it's not down, written in black and white, where somebody can look at it and then they have to run and take it to somebody who's going to approve something, if it's not written in black and white and you're just going on verbal, it's like plain telephone.
Another issue that ran into early on with one agency was we had project managers who would not send out recaps of meetings. And ideally, you should recap a meeting, and if tasks have been assigned to specific people, those recap emails should include what those tasks are and who they were assigned to.
And when they're due.
And failing to do that means things don't get implemented.
Yeah, that's
questions don't get answered.
That's part of leadership, management, whatever you want to call it, that you do that.
So I was in a meeting, and the project manager didn't seem to be paying too much attention. So after the meeting was over, I wrote up a recap email. And I sent it out to everybody. And she sent me an email saying, this is really good. I said, yeah, that's sort of what I was expecting you to send.
Now you know what you should be doing.
Oh, yes. Well, it's interesting, isn't
it? Leading by example.
Yeah, now that you know how to do it, I won't have to do it again.
Oh, man.
Training a boss can be challenging sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if she was thankful or mad at me. I think it was a combination.
Doing write-ups.
I think it was a combination of both.
She realized it's her job.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So I'm not the project manager. You are. So this recap email is managing the project. And it's a way of capturing everything that's going on and that has been decided upon, and gives us a chance to move forward.
Yeah, and if you can't move forward, then you can hold their feet to the fire. Saying we even sent you telling you exactly what you had to do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, it really does make a difference to capture things in black and white somehow.
Definitely. Okay, well, that's it for a show for today, guys. It's past the hour a bit. Thank you all. Thank everyone for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Have a great week.
Bye now.